so much for having me here, for organizing this event on the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, as Mark has mentioned. Je vais faire mes commentaires la plupart en anglais, mais si vous avez des questions en français, n'hésitez pas à poser des questions parce qu'on est tout à fait bilingue et on est capable de répondre en français. And I wanted to also thank Mark for making that acknowledgement of the Aboriginal land of the Algonquin people whose land that we are on right now. Andrew asked me to be brief, so I'll try and be brief. That's what litigators like to do. They like to stick to time limits. But I just had sort of three general sort of areas that I just wanted to sort of highlight generally, because I know our extensively experienced panel is going to have a lot of incredible observations and comments to make. The first point is just that in terms of this role as a Parliamentary Secretary for Multiculturalism, I think it didn't exist in October of 2015 when our government was sworn into office. And I think it's been created in part as an acknowledgement of the important work that needs to be done on the cultural diversity front, but also in an acknowledgement of the circumstances that we're living in right now. That there are strains that we are seeing. I think it's quite evident. You can argue about whether racism is on the rise or just whether we're seeing racism more out in the open, perhaps. And I think that's a sentiment where we found at different points in our history and in global history where people who hold strong views, bigoted views, who want to act out in a discriminatory manner sometimes feel more credible, more legitimated, more empowered to do so in a formal manner. And I think it's very, very important to understand that this is very much a domestic problem as much as people sometimes are focus their lens or their analysis on what's going on abroad in different countries. There's a key component here in Canada that we need to be aware of and cognizant of and work to combat. I think an important piece, and I'd be interested to hear what the panelists have to say about this, is also the rise of social media. Right. So when Pierre Trudeau was contemplating official multiculturalism as a policy in 1971-72, when we passed the Multiculturalism Act in 1980, there's no such thing as Twitter, there's no such thing as Instagram, there's no such thing as Facebook. And the level of impunity that social media provides to people who spread hateful or hurtful content is a significant challenge, and it's something I think we need to turn our minds to. In terms of sort of why is there this parliamentary secretary role, there is a parliamentary component to it, which dovetails with the annual report, the Multiculturalism Act, and with some of the key initiatives that we are doing. But there's also a component of sort of bridge building with different communities around the country. That is, I think, a very, very critical role for the government of Canada to play. There is a strong focus on the part of our government, the Trudeau government, on diversity and emphasizing that as a source of strength. And we've heard that many, many times, but unfortunately we're hearing it less and less in the international fora, so much so that there are fewer and fewer voices, unfortunately, that are carrying that banner forward. I think you've seen the results of the electoral campaign. It was a somewhat divisive campaign in 2015, but the Canadian people spoke, but I also think you can see a bit of that diversity focus even reflected in the government caucus, where there are 40 people that were born outside of the country. There are 10 Muslim members of the caucus, for example. There's a vast diversity of Canada that is represented on the government benches. In terms of, we're going to be getting into this, I just want to highlight a few things that are entrenched already in terms of active measures we are taking to combat intolerance and discrimination. So in terms of policy and legislation, you see sort of initiatives that, for example, this week we have an application deadline for funding that relates to money that we've put on the table that is geared towards combating racism, prejudice, and discrimination. That's called the Interaction Funding Envelope. So we've put $5.5 million on the table for projects that will work to combat racism, prejudice, and discrimination. I think that's very important because it's important to couple the sentiments and condolences and symbolic expressions of support that we've seen in the wake of things like the Quebec shooting with actual tangible policy deliverables. Another policy deliverable that I don't think people know enough about is the Security Infrastructure Program that's run through Minister Goodale's ministry, but that is dedicated towards places of worship or community centers that might affect particular communities that might feel targeted, that want assistance in terms of funding to help with their security. So whether they've been the subject of vandalism, whether they need security cameras, etc. There's also, as a constitutional lawyer, I have to obviously underscore the fact that we have human rights protections and constitutional protections in the country, a very undiscovered and infrequently litigated provision of the Charter is Section 27, which actually provides for multiculturalism entrenched in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. But again, the subject of very little information In terms of more to come, because Andrew's going to want me to wrap up shortly so we can hear from the panelists, but obviously this is an important day because it's the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. It also will include the concluding hour of debate on motion M103, which I'm sure everyone in this room is quite familiar with. It talks about having a study done on systemic racism and religious discrimination, including Islamophobia. We've seen a very targeted and focused campaign of disinformation about this motion, which has been troubling to say the least, to the point where people have said female genital mutilation will be arriving in Canada, or Sharia law is on our doorstep. Those kinds of campaigns need to be combated. Our government feels very, very strongly about that. The vote on motion M103 will take place on Thursday. If the motion passes, a committee will be studying this very issue and what we are talking about today going forward. And that's an important sort of springboard point because it emphasizes the focus that needs to be put on combating racism and religious discrimination. So I'll leave it at that for now because we're going to hear from the panelists. And merci beaucoup. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Arif.